Hi, and welcome to another One Pose Deep Restorative class. Today we're going to take a couple of different options that we can look at for a supported bridge pose. We're entering into the month of February, which is the month of love and Valentine's Day. So I thought our theme for this month could be devotion. So what we're going to try to do is use some different props to set up a supported bridge pose, which will help to open the heart and to bring a little bit of inward gazing as we do this. And so this is kind of a motion of the heart being forward and lifted, but we're going to support through the sacrum. So there's lots of different ways we could do this depending on what kind of props you have at home. I have a variety here so I can kind of show you some options. I have a meditation cushion that's usually used to sit on for meditation. I have a stack of blankets. I have a traditional studio bolster, and I also have a pair of blocks. So any of these could be used either separately or in combination to help support this pose. So let me show you a couple of options to set yourself up, and then we'll begin our practice. So to begin, let me just kind of show you the motion that we're after. Ideally, the spine will be kind of in this shape where the heart is forward. And we're going to accomplish this by creating some kind of support using one of these props underneath the sacrum. So just to begin, I'm going to show you with this meditation cushion. So this is just kind of like a giant beanbag type of thing. And basically this is going to go right underneath the sacrum. So this could look like coming onto the back first and then pressing the heels into the floor to lift for bridge, and then pulling the support underneath the sacrum. So this is one option, is to set the sacrum on something like this. Another option to use in the exact same way would be a stack of blankets. And I like this option because it's really versatile. You can change the fold of the blankets to create more or less height. You can use more or fewer blankets for the same effect. So the same kind of thing. This one is a little easier because it's separate pieces to have set in place as you come into the pose. So this might look like kind of sitting right at the very edge of your support, and then walking yourself down using your arms for support, and then just kind of scooting yourself into bridge pose by adjusting the placement of your sacrum against the blankets or support. And again, this can be raised higher or lower by using more or fewer blankets, or by changing the way that you fold the blankets for the proper height. So I encourage you to do some experimentation with this version of the pose. Another option to support you, and this is a prop that a lot of us have on hand, is a pair of blocks. And again, this can be used to offer multiple heights or multiple supports by either placing the two blocks next to each other flat. You could also place the blocks on this medium setting like this, so either like this or like this. You could also stack blocks on top of one another to create a different height as well. So again, depending on the options, and depending on your body and what's going to be comfortable over a long period of time. A couple of choices on how we do this. We can stack the blocks next to one another like this and place them underneath the body, kind of leaning back, and again just kind of pressing into the heels to lift your sacrum to place the blocks in the correct position. And by correct, I mean the one that works best for your body. So this is one option with blocks. Another option, again, could be to stack the blocks one on top of each other to create a higher setting. You could also turn the blocks on their side for an even different setting. So those are some options with blocks. Another option would be to place the two blocks so that one is at the bottom of the ribs and one is kind of more up at the shoulders. Now this creates a little bit more height for the whole back being supported. And in this case, I would recommend kind of placing your blocks, setting the sitting bones on the floor, and then slowly kind of placing the body over. Now this does create a much more open throat center. So this is one option like this. Another option would be to create some space between the two blocks, so that as you are coming down, the first block is supporting the bottom of the ribs, The second block is underneath the back of the skull, and the shoulders can kind of roll down between the two blocks into that space between. So that's another option. The third option uses a traditional studio bolster, and this could also be substituted for a bed pillow or two, depending on the height that is required for your body or that's most supportive for your body. This way we have two different options. One would be to place the bolster sort of perpendicular to your mat so that it's wide against the spine, rolling back, and again, lifting the sacrum so that you can kind of place it in the right spot again being the one that's most comfortable to your body. So this is one option. A second option would be to turn your bolster parallel to your mat, so you have the short edge of the bolster up against the spine. And again, we might come to seated right at the very edge of the bolster and then roll back. So this is, depending on your height, your head might be unsupported, or by kind of scooting it back a little bit, you could have your head, the back of your head supported as well. So these are just some options that you can take to kind of lift and open the front of the body. So some additional options for this pose would be to use blocks if you have an additional set of blocks beyond the ones that are supporting underneath your back, to place the heels on. So in this case, I'm going to use sort of this bolster supporting my sacrum. My head and shoulders are going to be on the mat. And then rather than keeping the soles of my feet on the floor, I can place the heels on these blocks. And so now the lower half of the body, from the sacrum down to the heels, is mostly level, but the chest, the heart, and the back of the skull are lower than the heart on the floor. So this is one option. Another option is to pull these blocks a little bit closer so that even when your knees are bent, your feet are a little off the floor. This reduces a little bit of the compression in the low back, and your feet can be flat on the blocks, or you could kind of place the arch of your foot at the corner of the block. And again, this is just going to reduce the amount of compression happening at the low back. So I encourage you to begin by just kind of taking notice of what props you have available to you, which ones are going to be the most supportive for your practice today, and then finding your way into your bridge pose to relax. Feel free to experiment with more than one option before you find your steadiness. And depending on which option you've chosen, you might find that the chin is sort of close to the heart, as the heart is curving upward toward meeting the chin. Or if your head is supported or at the same height as your heart, kind of just gently tucking the chin into the chest to elongate the back of the neck. So these are, again, some options you can experiment with. Then deciding whether or not you would like to have the legs extended or the soles of the feet on the floor. So for me today, I'm going to choose the version where my legs are extended, my heels are supported by the blocks, and my sacrum is supported by a bolster. But again, any combination of the props you have on hand and whatever works best for your body is the right choice for you. Appropriately apply effort to align the body, and then appropriately apply surrender to allow the body to take the form of the pose. And taking your time to set the pose up so that you can engage with this posture for as long as 10 or 15 minutes. And then slowly beginning to elongate the breath. Each breath in a little longer. Each breath out a little longer. As your breath slows, allowing your awareness to rest at your heart, And listening for or feeling for also the slowing and calming of the heartbeat. A big piece of devotion and devotional practice is the idea of surrendering one's individual self into the fullness and wholeness that is the divine, the sacred. See if you can embody that act by surrendering your body into the supports and into the earth. Much of bhakti, or this devotional practice, is also around the idea of giving oneself willingly. So we might find as we settle into this shape, there might be places of resistance in the body or in the breath. It's part of the practice to, over time, gradually and peacefully and very willingly release this resistance, soften our resistance to becoming whole. The sacrum lifted here, we have the metaphor of the body being lifted. Even as we simultaneously feel the body settling downward. So we have sort of that lift and opposing elevation with the relaxation and surrender. And it's true that by surrendering our bodies, as surrendering our individual minds, by surrendering our individual thoughts and feelings to wholeness, we are supported, we are elevated and lifted. But we do this by relaxing ourselves, by sort of humbling ourselves before wholeness. Just as there are two opposing parts of the breath, the drawing in of the inhale and the releasing outward through the exhale, we also experience this simultaneous elevation and relaxation, effort and ease in balance to create one whole practice. Inhale and exhale taken together to create one full breath. A devoted surrender and that feeling of being uplifted by letting go. When it's time to release the pose, depending on which version or expression of the pose you've taken. If your legs are extended long, we might begin by drawing the knees to bend and placing the soles of the feet on the floor to reduce that compression. If your legs are already in this position of soles of the feet on the floor and knees bent, it might feel good to lift one or both knees in toward the chest to gently lift the bottom of the sacrum upward. We might even rock a little side to side on our support if our body allows. And then just slowly over time, allowing the knees to fall gently inward towards the chest. Noticing how this changes the tilt of the pelvis. And eventually bringing the soles of the feet back to the floor. And again, depending on the setup you have chosen, depending on which props or supports you might be using, we might press the heels into the floor and gently pull the supports out to the side. Or if you're using a stack of supports like blankets, it might feel good to roll to your side and just kind of gently come up off of your supports. Eventually, as you come to a seated shape, we're just going to come to a neutral spine, the elongation now of the pelvis downward in towards the earth and the lengthening upward through the crown of the head. Just to gently counteract our long hold in our supported devotional bridge pose, gently tucking the chin slowly towards the chest over the course of several rounds of breath, letting the chin come ever closer to the chest and the heart. Particularly paying attention to your exhales and how they allow you to come a little deeper into this elongated back of the neck. When you feel you've reached your maximum in chin to chest, maybe allowing the shoulders to roll forward of the heart. Noticing how this lengthens and extends from the back of the skull all the way down to the mid-ribs or even the bottom of the ribs. There's an option to use the hands, palms of the hands against the fronts of the knees to pull the pelvis slightly so that the tailbone is pointing more towards the lap or the heels rather than towards the back body. And just gently holding this chin to chest, inward gazing pose, recognizing the wholeness that we have opened to now existing and more aware in our own being. You can stay in this shape as long as you like. You could also find just a very slow, elongated breath as you gently inhale to a cow shape with the chest forward and exhale to a cat shape with the chin towards the chest. When you feel neutralized, coming back into that long, tall spine, the downward pull of the pelvis toward the earth and the upward lift of the crown of the head reaching upward. Hands can rest in the lap, or hands can come palm to palm at the heart center. And close our practice with our regular prayer of service from each practice. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings be happy, healthy, safe, and free. Namaste.